Your Hormonal Story, a podcast about real women and real stories, breaking down the stigma about hormonal conditions. Join us for an informal chat about women's health, the struggles, the solutions. I'm Jeff Butterworth, naturopath and women's health specialist for over 25 years. Everyone has a story, and we'd love to help you with your unique story. Good morning to Melle and Zaylee.
Hi.
So for everyone watching, Melle, we're going to have a chat to Melle today with Your Hormonal Story. And Melle has had Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome, PCOS, and we're going to chat about her struggles with infertility and how she's managed to have two beautiful girls as part of that journey. So welcome, Melle.
Yeah. Thank you.
And Zaylee. So I've read a little bit about your story and background, and I always like to start off with how you got diagnosed in the first place with PCOS, because you were diagnosed quite late in the picture, which is often the case. So just talk me a little bit through that and that journey to start with.
Yeah, so you mean before I was diagnosed, or
just the actual diagnosis, and how that led to being diagnosed?
So it was actually brought on, like I got a lot of pain. I had a lot of pain and inflammation. My periods were really irregular. Sometimes I would have like 3 periods in a month. Like I would be bleeding most of the month and have like maybe a week break or something ridiculous. And so I brought it up to my doctor, and he did some blood tests and talked to me about it, and looked at my history, because in my history I was taking like the pill for quite some time, because I'd never been normal with my periods, and back when I started sort of going through like having periods in the first place, I was put on the pill straight off the bat because they were just so irregular, and it was awful for someone in their early teens to like sort of have to deal with that. So they just kind of gave me the pill and moved on, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that was how the whole thing got started, and then my doctor diagnosed me with polycystic.
Okay. So at what age, how old are you now, and at what age did you get the diagnosis?
I got diagnosed the year I got married, so 2018, so not that long ago. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And
I would have been 24.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm 29 now.
Okay. Yeah, it's a really interesting one, because the pill is for some women is a great way to manage the symptoms of PCOS. It kind of puts that band-aid over the top, but it usually surfaces when you start to want to have children, and we'll get to that in a minute. So it's interesting how, very much so if you didn't go on the pill, then maybe you would have got that diagnosis around 16, 17, and then would have learned to sort of manage that. But you kind of had to go through, obviously the pill minimized the symptoms, but obviously you're getting the pain, and it still wasn't doing everything it needed to be doing for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then tell me, once you got the diagnosis, were you just got married at that point? Is it then what was the next step, to stay on the pill, or what did the doctor suggest?
I hadn't gotten married yet. It was just the same year that we were so we were planning our wedding at the time when it happened, and I had recently as well like gained quite a bit of weight, and I mean, I must admit, like I never was too interested in like drinking and things like that earlier on, and in that last sort of year or two leading up to the diagnosis, I was having the odd drink. So I think, like, you know, definitely diet played into it as well, but there was yeah, I had gained a lot of weight in that year for sure.
And when you're a teenager, was the symptoms that you were suffering back then, was weight gain an issue then at all?
Nope. I'd never had weight gain issues until the year leading up to being diagnosed.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Which is interesting, because the common symptoms of polycystic ovarian syndrome are not always is certainly weight gain, but things like obviously heavy painful periods, irregular periods, hair growth. Was that a problem for you, excessive hair growth?
Yeah, so under here I get like quite a lot of, like, they're blonde, but they're very like very long sporadic ones that come through. Yeah, luckily they're blonde. I mean, I feel terrible for women that have got like a very dark sort of hair, like, and dark complexion, because it just stands out a lot more, and the amount of times you have to get rid of it, and you don't, like, it could just sprout up again overnight, you know.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And it's one, particularly as a teenager, it's one of the really difficult things to manage, because okay. So when you went and saw the doctor, you got the diagnosis, then they just continued on the pill as well, or?
No. So my doctor believed that the pill was contributing, plus, you know, I was telling him, you know, we want to have kids after we get married. Oh, yeah. Sorry. So I stopped the pill because he believed that it contributed to, like, my polycystic, and that it was, putting a band-aid on it, as you say. Yeah. So I started taking metformin. Yep. And apart from that, he just suggested, you know, you need to change your diet. You probably want to look at not drinking, don't have sugar as much as possible. He said, I know that you make most of your food at home, but, like, try and do that with every meal if you can. And then he said maybe also go gluten-free, because your mother is gluten-free and it's not good for polycystic as well. It can add to the inflammation. So that's what I did.
Okay.
To start with. Yeah.
Well, it's really encouraging to hear a doctor who's obviously quite a good doctor and holistic minded to go into that. Because, and just for the ladies listening, is PCOS, there's very strong hormonal elements to it, but it's a metabolic syndrome, and there's something called insulin resistance, which it relates to your blood sugar levels. And when you become insulin resistant, part of this metabolic syndrome with PCOS, this is where you start to get the sugar cravings, and your sugar levels start to fluctuate, and that contributes a lot to the weight gain. So it's really important with diet, obviously, to reduce sugars, to go low GI, which is glycemic index. And there's food lists that you can so basically that means eating whole foods and staying away from processed foods. And yes, certainly alcohol is a big issue. Gluten seems to be an issue as well. And the other one is dairy, as we chatted about before, can be, it's very common in pen. There's quite a few studies on dairy intake and PCOS. So, yeah. All right. So you managed to lose some weight from there.
I did. So that helped me for a while. I felt like I really had to push at it. Like, I really did have to push myself. And exercise wise as well. Like, sometimes I felt like I was doing so much exercise compared to what I was doing before, that it almost felt like I wasn't getting anywhere, but I actually was. So by the time my wedding rocked around, I had gained over the year about 25 kilos.
Wow.
And I lost, I think, about 15, 16 kilos before my wedding, and that was in a total of, I think, maybe 3 or 4 months.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. And that was just from changing, cutting the sugar out, alcohol, eating more of a whole food diet. And
and I to keep that goal going for myself, I actually it was a pretty risky move, but I ordered my dress, which was made in vintage lace, so you cannot alter it. I made it smaller.
Okay. And
about a week before the wedding, I was really nervous, and I tried it on, and it fit. So I was stoked about that. Well for done. Sure. Yeah.
Well, see, the thing, and this is for you and for women listening, is going back to this metabolic syndrome. It's a lot harder for you to lose weight, and you have to work harder because of this insulin resistance. And until you get the insulin resistance under control, then the weight often won't shift. But the way to get the insulin resistance under control is with the diet and the lifestyle factors. But it takes time for this metabolic mechanism that's happening in the body to shift and to change. So eating all those whole foods and getting rid of the sugar, it can take 3 to 4 months before that situation corrects itself. And then the weight will start to come off. So that's probably what happened with you. And then the weight just fell off you. So okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It did. But not like to the extent where, like, after the wedding, I mean, we went on our honeymoon, and you obviously things happen when you when you go away, you go on holiday, and you kind of get a bit laxed about everything and stuff. And I could feel myself sort of folding back into like I wasn't drinking or anything again, because I'm not really I was never a huge drinker, so that was actually quite an easy one to cut. But as far as like the gluten and the sugar and stuff, I didn't really sort of think about it the same way, and I definitely felt like a lot of the inflammation and everything coming back, and I did start sort of looking at other things that could help me at that point.
So let's just talk a little bit about the this aspect of how difficult it is it's easy enough to say we're going to cut out sugar, gluten, alcohol, and all those bad foods. But just talk me through a little bit of the emotional side to that in terms of the cravings and how difficult that was for you. And still is.
I think the sugar part's extremely difficult for me. I must admit, I've always been like quite a sweet tooth, like growing up and stuff, and as a teenager and things, like I always had a part-time job through school, so I never didn't have money to sort of like go to the dairy with my friends and things like that, like you would, like a lot of kids do. So I think that doesn't really help when you have like a history of loving that sort of food, and then you're like, nope, nothing. You go from that to sort of like nothing. I even made my own sauces and everything just to really try and like just completely get it out of there.
Wow. Okay.
So,
and it's important to understand, I suppose, that it's not just the sugar, it's you have this genetic predisposition to poor sugar metabolism. You can take her if you'd like to, it's fine. She wants a mum, does she?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you mentioned that you started then to look at other things as well, is that when you stumbled across the Happy Healthy products, or?
Yeah, so another friend of mine who was also polycystic, she had actually fallen pregnant before realizing that she was that bad, and she lost her baby at 20 weeks, which is pretty rough.
Yes.
And when she did, she really wanted to get pregnant again, but it wasn't happening. And she found Happy Hormones, and she thought it was really great, and so she added me on Facebook to the Facebook page to start with, and then I just sort of started seeing a lot of women talking about this and that and their issues and struggles, and I went on the website and just sort of started having a look around and thought it'd be good to try it. Yeah.
Okay. And then what happened once you got the products? And because
I actually found that I had more, like it was like only a week of taking it before I found I actually had more energy, like as far as when it came for like going for a run or a walk or something. I could actually keep up with my mother, which is huge because she's quite a fitness freak, I would say. So that was really cool, and I hadn't felt that way in a few years for sure, which was really nice. It was nice for my husband too to see me sort of starting to feel a bit better about myself, because with the metformin and the diet and stuff, I was doing it and I was pushing, but I didn't feel like I was really like happy doing it, because it was so much I had to do to like just get a little bit off of me and feel a little bit better. So it definitely helped a lot.
Yeah, it's, Happy Hormones is a broad spectrum hormonal balancer, but one of the ingredients in there is gymnema, which is a herb that helps to regulate sugar levels and insulin resistance. Now, interestingly enough, metformin is made from that exact same herb, but they synthesize it into metformin. So the actual gymnema is the raw material of metformin. But when you take a herb, it has a lot of other balancing mechanisms built into it, just like everything in nature. So it's not a driving force like metformin can be. And it's just, I'd say Happy Hormones is just a catalyst. It's just a tool when you use it in conjunction with all the diet and lifestyle and everything else, because that's the core factor that really makes the big difference. Happy Hormones is a tool that you can use to make it easier, as you said. And also with you, I imagine you said you just were feeling the weight of everything that was going on. You're probably feeling a little bit depressed. Having to do all this stuff is a big thing for any person, let alone a young woman. So what Happy Hormones does is help balance your hormones, which hormones are powerful mediators of mood. And so with PCOS, you've got this metabolic syndrome, and there's two parts to it. You've got the hormonal part, but you've got the insulin resistance part. So the Happy Hormones helps with the hormonal part, and then you've got the dietary stuff going as well. So you've got to put the two together, and that's the holistic approach. And that's why kind of our approach is more of a rounded approach, rather than where the medical one is cut out all the sugar and take metformin. They're missing the hormonal balance part of it. So it can help, and this is where, you mentioned in your story that the doctor was surprised when you fell pregnant, because often women don't fall pregnant on their approach because they're only dealing with half of the situation with the metformin. PCOS is a two-pronged approach that you've got to work on. So
yeah, he was definitely surprised, but which is funny here. And the scan place, was right upstairs from my doctor's, and he actually walked with me up there. He wanted to see straight away. Said I had a baby inside of me, which is really funny.
And the great thing is now he's seen that with that holistic approach of the hormonal balancing and the diet, that women can fall pregnant, because his preconception was that it's going to be very difficult to fall pregnant, and you're probably going to have to try different fertility treatments and the like. So it's part of this kind of education that we're all about, is not just educating women about PCOS and hormonal conditions, but educating through default the medical community that there are other options that they may not know about. Tell me about that a little bit. Obviously you'd spoken to your doctor about having children and that kind of stuff. Just give me his kind of opinion before all this happened.
Well, he was very honest with me. He said, it could happen. It could definitely happen. But he said, for you, it's going to be something that you probably have to work at because in the position you sort of are at, you have a bit of a road ahead of you to get there. And then he said, but to be honest, looking at how you are now and the inflammation and the pain that you have, I wouldn't say that you'd be having kids anytime soon. Okay. And he said, or if at all as well. Yeah. So he did say, it could be a possibility that you can't have kids, and I just want to tell you that and lay it all out there for you. So, and yeah, that was a hard pill to swallow. It was a rough day. Yeah. And
it's interesting you putting a smile to it now, and the other ladies I chat to with PCOS always put a brave face on it. But just tell me a little bit more how that feels to be told that maybe, and there's a strong chance you won't be able to have children.
I mean, I cried in the car park, not gonna lie, I did. Yeah. And you know, my husband came home early from work, and my parents, they live around the corner from me, which is really, really special for us, because they're hugely helpful, not just with the kids, but they've always been there for me emotionally every time as well. And you know, they gave me big hugs, and I think even my dad kind of cried a little bit, to be honest, which, you know, it takes a bit to get him like that, but I'm, you know, his oldest daughter, so it's you know, it was probably a hard pill for them to swallow too, just wondering whether I'd be able to get to that point of having them, because of course they wanted grandbabies as well. Yeah, it's definitely emotional, and I felt like part of me felt like a little bit less of a woman. I know that's silly to say, but it does make sense when you think of it, because like I feel like part of, if you want to be a mother, then part of that like sort of dream of steps of things like, you know, buying a house, getting married, having kids, like it's a big thing of it. And I feel like I've always sort of felt like it's really important in my life to have them, so that was hard.
No, it's such a powerful instinct in humans to have children, and particularly when, you know, you'd in your mind you'd set your life out, and then to be told just like that that's not going to happen, it can be certainly heartbreaking. And then the knock-on effects for your family. Tell me a little bit about your husband as well, because it equally affects him too. How did he feel?
Yeah. He was really supportive of me. I know that he 100% really wanted to have kids. He's a big kid himself. He just, you know, like it was a big thing to him. He's 7 years older than me too, so if it was going to take a long time, I think he was sort of worried whether his performance would be up to par by the time that would happen. So that was another thing. I think he was sort of worried about that as well. But he was, really, really supportive of me. And he was always the one telling me, doesn't matter what they say, we will have them, sort of thing. So he was determined for me, which is good.
And it's so great that you've got that support structure around you, because a lot of women don't have that and have to go through this even alone. So, and I think that's probably, you can't discredit that as a therapeutic tool as well, because there's many factors that go into conceiving a child, and stress levels are a big part of that. And if you really get down on that factor, then that affects your ability to conceive as well. So well done to the family and husband around you to help you on that journey.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky.
Okay, so tell me, you at this time were you doing the dietary changes as well, and had you started? No, you hadn't started.
I'd come back to it.
Right.
Yeah, after our honeymoon, I did come back to it pretty pretty hard, and not even the odd drink. It was just like back to strict, and I was also working with planes then, so a lot of physical exercise anyway was in my job, and I decided to ramp that up a bit by actually joining the team on the tarmac as well. So that was really physical, and I just felt like that also really helped to sort of get me to a place where I could sort of feel like my body was getting better, and the inflammation was definitely going down. My periods, even like after the happy hormones, I started to feel like it significantly helped with like how frequent they were like always bang on, and I'd never ever had that. I'd never ever had a time in my life where I knew that my period was coming and that it lasted for so long. I never had that ever, so that was huge. I was like, oh, I've kind of felt a little bit like normal, like everyone else for a minute here. So mind you, when I say everyone else, a lot of people struggle with this, like you said, and it's crazy because a lot of people don't talk about it, and after sort of taking happy hormones and sort of sharing my story with friends and things, it's amazing how many of them have like even spoken out to me about their issues too. It's like, oh, okay, and that sort of makes you feel a bit more normal too.
It's interesting you say feeling a bit more normal, because you do have this big struggle in your life, which is, you know, a lot of women can just have very little problems and stuff, but it's kind of a hard card to be dealt fairly early on in life. Is you're getting all these physical symptoms, and then it's very much a journey, and it's about educating yourself and learning. And you can see yourself, when I eat the right foods, then I see the difference in how I feel. And when I take things like happy hormones, it all comes together and you start to feel normal, right? Because you've got genetic predisposition that makes you susceptible to this. And unfortunately, you're gonna have to struggle with this most of your life. But it's all about making those changes that you've made more palatable, if it makes sense. So turning your life more into what I call a wellness lifestyle. So trying to find ways to enjoy eating these kind of foods, to enjoy exercising. It's sort of coping mechanisms. And for a lot of the ladies listening out there now, that with PCOS, it's going to be a struggle. But if you put all those pieces together, you can lead a normal life, because the conventional medical model is going to say, no, you can't have kids. You're going to need to be on these drugs for the rest of your life. And they very much managing the symptoms. But you know, you're an example that you can manage them and actually have very few symptoms if you make the right diet, lifestyle choices, and use the right natural medicines. So, you know, I suppose you're at that stage now where, you know, how do you then implement these changes you have to make to feel normal and enjoy them? Tell me, you know, where are you at in terms of that thought process? And do you wake up every day and sort of go, oh no, I've got to eat this and I've got to do this? Or are you starting to enjoy some of those things that you've implemented?
So I've always been big into cooking, like food and cooking. So like even with the dietary changes and stuff, I was probably sometimes even like eating too much of like still good foods, but just too much of it. So like implementing to me is just like, I don't know, like having a smaller plate in front of me to make that work, just stuff like that. And if I do that, then I feel like I am enjoying it still. I am still able to sort of not have to feel like I'm in this sort of strict regiment. I don't really feel like that so much. And after having like second baby now, obviously I'm back to taking off my baby weight again, but I know that I can do it now. I feel like I know that, and so I'm not putting as much pressure on myself, because I know that I can get there to a stage where I want to have my body at again, and I don't hate my body, if anything, I love it more because it's produced 2 children now. But I know I can get back to where I want to be, and that's really cool. So
yeah,
just another journey.
And the other thing that can be difficult too is when you're feeling depressed and sad about all these sort of things that are going on, the first thing you want to do is go for comfort foods and foods that make you feel good. So that's kind of the other double side to this as well. It's not just about, you've got the genetic insulin resistance, which makes you crave these foods. Then there's also, you're feeling down, so it's a really difficult cycle to break. And congratulations, you figured all this out yourself, which is in itself quite rare.
Also, I probably would say that having a mother like mine is pretty helpful. The fact that she was in nutrition, like wellness, and like also mental health. She did a lot in mental health too. I think really does sort of help, because she's kind of like that little nag on your shoulder sometimes, but gotta love her for it at the same time.
Yeah, you do need that support, and to have a mother that studied nutrition and nursing, it certainly has been a great tool for you. So okay, well done. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit then about, so you went back on, you was taking happy hormones, and then were you actively trying to conceive? Talk me through your first child.
Very, very strict, trying to conceive. My husband as well, because he heard that it would help, he stopped drinking too. Okay. And we just sort of, we would cycle watch and stuff as much as possible. But because of polycystic ovaries, like a lot of women like myself, we don't really have a normal cycle, and so it's just kind of about trying all the time, I guess. And it took less time than we thought, actually, with the happy hormones, whereas we didn't have protection, like protected sex, for a very long time before I had happy hormones. And I feel like it really did honestly contribute to helping me to get there, for sure.
Yeah, it's just those 2 elements, as I said before. You're doing the right things with your diet, and then you just plug in the hormonal support, and then everything just aligns. So okay, so tell me, when you got that, the scare, when you thought you were pregnant, talk me through a little bit about that, because that must have been an amazing time and feeling.
So I had recently just changed jobs, and I'd just gotten a promotion. So the funny thing is we were sort of like in a different wave of concentration on it. Like I just started stressing less about it a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I was pregnant. I'm very in tune with my body, just like I kind of knew that something was wrong when I got checked out to see if I had polycystic. I kind of knew that something was wrong in that era of things. And so I actually took a pregnancy test at work, because I was adamant that I was pregnant and I couldn't wait. I was just like, no, I know I am. I'm gonna take this test, and it was positive. And I only worked with men. It was only men at work, and I'm not gonna tell any of them. So I just flicked a photo of it to my husband and said, "What do you think of this?" And he was so excited that when I got out of work, he was standing right outside, and he said, "Let's go and take some more. We're gonna go make sure this is real, so that we can get excited."
It makes me feel so nice. And life throws challenges at all of us in different ways. And as I said, you had a hard card dealt with PCOS, but just the rising above that adversity, and your husband's reaction, it's amazing. So all right, let's say fast forward. How was the pregnancy? Was it because often, if you've got other issues going on with PCOS, it's not the best pregnancy, but
so I was kind of scared for the first 12 weeks, obviously, because my doctor did sort of say to me, could also people with polycystic ovaries, you have more chance of sort of losing the baby in that first trimester. So it's just really important to keep on with things. I kept taking my metformin and my happy hormones until sort of about 10-11 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then my doctor said to me, everything looks good, the baby's strong, everything's great, why don't we just drop that now, because it's not really a good thing to be taking when you're pregnant. And so I said, yeah, cool, and I stopped taking everything, but obviously I kept up with my diet, but I was really, really sick, so puking, but I mean that just comes with the territory of being pregnant. But they actually say that is a sign that your baby's quite strong.
Exactly.
And I think the next point where I was nervous was probably for the glucose tests and stuff, because polycystic also makes it quite easy for you to get gestational diabetes. And that obviously affects you and your child, and it's really important to find out those things so that you can manage it. And again, that's not always exciting to hear something like that, but I didn't have it, which is really, really cool. And when those tests came back, I was super stoked. And it was a pretty good ride, my first pregnancy, I must say. I danced my whole way through it, I would say, because I would go out with friends and they would be drinking and stuff, but I would just be dancing. So.
Very good. Okay, so let's fast forward to you've had your first child, everything's great, and then you're looking to conceive again. I read a little bit about your story. Tell me what happened then.
Yeah, so I think anyone knows this as a mother. It can be quite hard to think about yourself over your child, and sometimes you still have to do that. You've got to find your own balance, and it was kind of hard for me to find that balance, I think. So and also I had a prolapsed bladder, which really doesn't help as far as physical activity, so I probably wasn't exercising as much as I should. And so yeah, I sort of dipped for a while again, and sometimes I would just have something fast, have some quick food, because I'm dealing with a child that's starting to walk and talk and everything, and it gets crazy. And yeah, so when we were thinking about trying for number 2, we were going to space it out more, but the doctor actually recommended not to because of the prolapsed bladder. So if I wanted another kid, he sort of said you should probably go for it soon, so you need to sort of get yourself back on track. Yeah. Okay. So I didn't take the happy hormones again right away. When we did start trying, I probably should have, but to be honest, I didn't actually really think about it, which sounds kind of funny, but I just sort of thought, I'll try with the diet first, see how I go, and I'll order it if I need to. And I had actually ordered it, and then while I was waiting for it to come, I fell pregnant, but we lost that baby. So that was another sort of hard pill to swallow. you know that you can get there because you've had a kid, but that one didn't sort of work out. It wasn't meant to be.
Yeah. And it's anyone that hasn't been through miscarriage may not understand, but it's incredibly heartbreaking, and not understanding the future as well is, now can I conceive again? And it's a very difficult thing on you physically. It's a very difficult thing on you emotionally. So I can understand exactly what you're going through at that phase. So that then, I'm assuming, is then the catalyst that really got you to work on your diet again, get back onto the happy hormones, and then tell me what happened.
Well, I was only taking happy hormones for 4 weeks, and I got pregnant with Zaylee. But like, it's not to say that was the only thing that helped. Like you said, it's got to be paired with everything else. And so like I was, I guess, more determined after losing baby too, to sort of like take a step back and sort of think about the things that I needed to sort of do a little bit more of again. I'd probably was having those, those odd fast meals and things like that. And so I just didn't have those. I was still breastfeeding Melle, my first daughter. So I wasn't drinking or anything, but definitely like the odd bit of sugar, I definitely would dabble into that, especially because when you're breastfeeding, like, you get so hungry that sometimes you just grab whatever's in front of you. It's pretty ridiculous how hungry you get sometimes. So I just sort of stopped with that again, and I was pregnant in like no time. It was crazy. I was just like, I don't even feel like I'd gotten over miscarrying or anything before we were pregnant again. So that was pretty cool.
Well, you've done all that, as I said, with insulin resistance. It's a syndrome, and it's a bit like a cup of water that's being filled up, and when that glass is full, it tips over, and then insulin resistance, everything goes haywire. But when you've done some of that work, you're reducing that level of insulin insensitivity, so it doesn't take that much to change, and literally can be a week of eating the right things, and your insulin resistance comes back into a line. You pop happy hormones on top and regulate the hormones. And what happy hormones does, and it's all in hindsight now, but your progesterone levels are really important in those early phases of pregnancy. And to conceive, but also to hold the child. And if your doctor had actually given you some progesterone pessaries for the first miscarriage, that may have held. So that's something just for women that are listening now, is a vast majority of miscarriages are through low progesterone in those first 12 weeks. So and it's about the only time I actually suggest synthetic progesterone is in that early stages of pregnancy. So
I did get given some.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Some supplement of them, but I didn't really take them. I kept forgetting if I to be honest. So like I'd take the odd one, but then kind of forget a little bit. So yeah. Right.
Okay. So your doctor is onto it, but if you don't take them,
yeah, I'm terrible at taking pills, and I would prefer to like try and stick to things that are natural. Even when I was taking metformin, I really struggled with like having the motivation to take that, just because my whole body like always screams to me like don't like sort of take things like that. I don't even take Panadol very often for pain, rather like push through it. Okay. Because when you take so much Panadol, your body builds up a tolerance to it, and then all of a sudden you sort of need more of whatever it is. It's just yeah.
Well, I'm going to give you a couple of tips now. Is metformin, of all the drugs that are out there, is one of the least harmful. It's certainly not perfect, but it's actually one of the only drugs that is available, of all the pharmaceuticals, that actually is helping with one of these biological processes, which is this insulin sensitivity. It's a preventative measure, whereas most drugs are not really preventative. They're more go in and attack a certain thing or force their way, whereas the metformin is actually stopping. It's like a drug that it's hard to explain, but it's not doing anything directly in the body, but it's affecting a metabolic process, which is the insulin sensitivity. But you can do that with natural medicines as well. As I said, gymnema, the herb that's in Happy Hormones, is what metformin is developed from. But there's other things that you can do to improve your insulin sensitivity. So there's a mineral called chromium, which is incredible. Another one, magnesium, and then you have your B vitamins. Now, part of the components of insulin are chromium and magnesium, and there's some certain B vitamins as well. So you're giving the body the cofactors it needs to make the insulin more sensitive in your system. So you can often just get in health food stores, there's blood sugar complexes that contain chromium, magnesium, and B vitamins. That would be a really good adjunct to Happy Hormones as well, just to keep your insulin levels sort of going. Another thing that is really helpful is increase, and it's going to sound strange, but increasing your amount of good fats. So things like avocado, nuts and seeds are really, really good, just because they can help to slow that sugar going into your system, because with blood sugar levels, you're getting this up and down all the time. So things like the chromium, magnesium, B vitamins can slow that effect, but and then more of the whole food diet. But what fats do is they just slow that any carbohydrate or sugar that's in your food, it slows that into your bloodstream. So, and it'll keep you more hungry for longer. So that the combination of those two, you can potentially avoid needing the metformin. Have you gone back
I'm
to
not taking it?
Right. So,
I'm not taking it. I mean, I'm done with having kids, but that doesn't, it's not to say that I, shouldn't go back to it if I feel like I'm getting to that point where I'm not like losing anything and I'm getting the pain coming back and my periods start to like go all sporadic and things again. I think that's the point where I'd sort of go and maybe take that again. Happy Hormones though, like I'm taking that again, and sort of like just starting to sort of look at my diet again at the moment after, I mean, my baby's only 2 months old, but I mean, I always stay like low sugar and all of that, but probably kind of look at cutting it out again for a while, and trying a couple of supplements would be really cool, and just see how I go with all of that. And obviously my exercise as well. I've got my good old double pram.
Okay, good.
For a run.
My advice would be a couple of things. Is one, be kind on yourself. Okay, you've been through a lot, and try and just ease yourself into, as I said, this, change your mindset from I have to do this. Like you had to do it before because you had this powerful motivating force of wanting children. But as you said, you've had children now. So what's going to be that motivating force moving forward? Because you're always going to have to deal with this. So one, be kind on yourself and look at it, try and develop it around a lifestyle, which is this wellness lifestyle, and start to enjoy that process, because it can be really enjoyable. There's sporting clubs and, new mums clubs, and make it a social thing rather than you just out there on the pavement by yourself. Because mentally you can only push yourself through that so much. So
well, I did do a program between my girls as well. It was to do with my prolapsed bladder, but they also are all about like sort of helping with like diet and health and like hormonal imbalances and stuff as well. And it's called Tummy Mummy here in Nelson, and it's just a big mum group in the gymnasium, and like we just go and do all sorts of like pelvic floor exercises, and then we go for like a big walk and stuff like that. So I did that, and I wouldn't mind going and jumping back into that. What it looks like now with the whole, like, all the weird pandemic stuff, I'm not sure. But I have got like a really good support system, of course, of my family, and I've also got like a lot of mum friends, and we all kind of get together and we do stuff, and it's it's for our enjoyment as well as the kids. So we do have fun doing things that also help our own selves and make us feel better about our bodies. So
no, it's so important that we often forget the emotional, mental aspect of getting healthy, and it's so much easier just to eat junk food and to fall off the rail. It takes work to keep yourself in balance. And what I would suggest is, apart from having fun doing these things, is as I said, be kind to yourself. And part of that is just taking time for yourself, which is really hard, I know, with 2 young kids, but just getting yourself into that mental headspace where that's, kind on yourself. And that's where things like meditation, if you can get a moment, learning meditation can be really good, because when you're busy and you're stressed, and it's kind of like this emotional kind of feelings sort of bubble away under the surface, and then they kind of raise up. Whereas meditation, things like yoga, exercise, having fun, they can kind of keep a lid on the feelings of depression and anxiety and those kind of things. So just be aware of that as well, really, that and obviously hormones, and that's where happy hormones comes in again, is hormones are powerful mediators of mood. So really keeping an eye on how you're feeling yourself, and when you start to feel like those wanting junk foods and doing the wrong things is kind of a symptom that emotional stuff is getting a little bit out of balance. That makes sense?
Well, the first couple, it does make sense, because the first couple of weeks after having my latest daughter, I didn't really realize, and I had a really, really traumatic birth. It was really awful. And so I didn't really realize that I had it until sort of I was starting to come out of it, but I did have some depression, like some postnatal depression, and I was eating like everything wrong for those first few weeks after, and I felt like I was sort of like just trying to hang in there for a little while there, but I'm feeling a lot better now, so that's good.
Always that first
part of it was actually
go on.
Part of it was actually getting out there and like getting some fresh air and going for a walk. Kind of did give me the sort of it helped me mentally as well. Like it was more of a sort of mental thing. So definitely the exercise, it's not only going to help my body, but it will help me mentally. And so I just need to keep getting out there and doing that, and talking about all the issues that I have and the things I've gone through really do help too.
Absolutely. That I was just going to say that first 3 months of any newborn is always difficult. So again, being kind in yourself, and just getting that little bit of motivation to get out there, and as you said, talk to people, exercise, and as I said, using all those tools like happy hormones. It's just little tools. It's just it's almost like a little first aid kit that you develop in terms of your health and understanding what you're doing. And, you've done, just listening to you, you've just done such an incredible job to get to where you are now. It's really, I don't think people understand what you've been through and what you've had to learn and endure. And it's not spoken about, hence why we're chatting about it now. But these are major life challenges that you've tackled, and you've tackled them really, really well. So take motivation from that moving forward and go, yes, I can do this. And if you can do it with the right mind space, then you can then build this into something where these dips that you go through, which are very, very common, become less, and you can really embrace it 100% all the time. But if you slip, that's fine as well. Just it's just really important to keep that positive mental approach that you've brought through all of this. So, I got a baby back, have we?
She's happy now. Mum made her happy.
She had a nap.
She had a wee nap on Mum.
Fantastic.
Say hi.
He said hi. Oh, hi.
Those beautiful blue eyes, clear blue eyes. So.
I know. So many babies born with blue eyes.
Yeah.
And that both my girls were, but my first daughter's, they've changed, so she'll probably be the same.
Okay.
She's so strong.
Can you see him? You're wondering what's going on.
Who's that? Who's that in there?
and obviously the girls are your reward for all the hard work that you've done. So
yes, yeah, they are. They're a big reward though. And I've got very, very strong, healthy girls, both of them. So I'm real lucky to have that as well. Have them both be so healthy and strong. And my first daughter, I've sort of brought in the practice, and I'll be doing it with this one of the whole. So because I've always had an issue with sugar, she's never had refined sugar, and she's 2 now, and I know a lot of mums find that hard, especially around like birthday parties and stuff. But I've just found my way. I make everything for her, and she loves veggies. So I don't think she would if she'd had so much sugar. And she doesn't really know what it is yet. And until she knows what it is, I don't see any point in giving it to her. So.
And unfortunately, they will probably have that predisposition as well. So, and that's what genetics are. So everything that you can do now and educating them into their own teenage years is a really powerful thing as well. So, well done. Okay, I better let you go. So, Mel, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm just so happy to see how well you've done, and the children and everything, how you've turned everything around, and thank you for sharing your story. If it can just help one lady with PCOS that's looking at conceiving and wondering what to do.
Anyone that can help, I'm happy with that for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much, and thank you to your mum, and
no problem.
We will keep track of your progress.
Thanks.
Bye now.